channels left to open. How many big RPG series do you have going at once? It's funny you say that. I was going back over my YouTube VODs recently, just out of curiosity. And I started playing the Yakuza series from zero, like back in July or August of 2023. And the initial plan was to do one Yakuza, one of these. So I've been playing these games on and off for like about a year and a half. It's why I'm desperate to get one of them finished, because I'm going to be replaying Bravely Default now in about 2.5 weeks. Because of the HD Remaster for Switch 2. Which... Meg done forced you to play more Yakuza at the same time. Yeah, you did. So... I mean, to be fair, it was a Discord poll. On my Bravely Default machine, yeah. Which I learned recently... Bravely Default HD Remaster... I can just sell it when I'm done, yeah. I'll just sell my Switch 2 once I'm done with Bravely Default. It has had any mechanics that were in... Okay, hold on. First, I'm gonna put a light on, because it got really dark in here very quickly, so I'm gonna put a light on. No? Controller, do you want to just sit and not push the, sticks? No? Okay, hold on. Let me put a light on. Oh. Okay, tracking went a bit nuts. So, there are technically 3 versions of Bravely Default. There is Bravely Default Flying Fairy, which was the original Japanese release. Then, when they knew Bravely Second was being made, they re-released it as Bravely Default for the sequel. Which had a whole bunch of like quality of life improvements and a couple of things that kind of leaned into, oh, this is going to be important later. That was the version we got in the West, which was called Bravely Default Where the Fairy Flies. The remaster has gutted anything in reference to the sequel, Bravely Second. There is a mechanic in the game called Bravely Second, which would give you extra turns, and you would build up points for this mechanic by putting the 3DS in sleep mode and just leaving it overnight. You would build up a point like every 8 hours or something. That has been nixed from this HD remaster. There is worry among the community that this also extends to any reference to Bravely Second, the video game. Which didn't do so well in Japan, because it was a fucking abomination. The version we got was much better, and I love the game we got, but the Japanese version, not great. Not great. Like, so much so that I think it might actually be a taboo subject within SquareEnix. So I don't know if Bravely Second is going to get the HD Remaster treatment after this game. I would hope so. I would love for Bravely Second to not just be stuck in 3DS purgatory for the rest of its existence, but I guess we'll see when we get there. But if it is stuck in 3DS purgatory, It means I'm going to have to emulate it if I want to play it on stream, like the original Bravely Default. And I would rather not, because managing 2 screens through an emulator and screen captures and all of that stuff was a pain in the ass. Not to mention, Nintendo came down hard recently enough on a lot of the 3DS emulators out there. So yeah, it might just be a more difficult experience than it needs to be. But it also deprives... Like, I was hoping I would get to introduce everyone to Magnolia from Bravely Second outside of that little teaser, shall we say, without context, at the end of Bravely Default. But if that teaser has been removed, Bravely Default ending, it's a hell of a lot darker. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. And I really hope that that isn't the case, and I hope that SquareEnix kind of, you know, listens to the moral of the story of that game. That the idea of Bravely Second is to have the courage to try again. Where, like, the message of Bravely Default is, you know, have the courage to disobey. I'm really just kind of... I am very worried. Because here I was thinking, oh great, these HD remasters, I'll get to be able to play them properly, glistened up, you know, they'll have a whole new coat of paint, we can go on the adventures again, and it'll be good times. And then there might just be this whole possibility that Square Enix will ignore the sequel because it nearly killed the franchise in Japan. Let's you know, without too much hyperbole, it nearly killed the franchise. So, just nervous collar tugging. I'm glad I still have a version of Citra. Oh, same. But, you know, I felt like every time I booted up Citra, it needed to... What was the difference between the Japanese and Western versions? Okay. So a couple of things. There is a point in Second where you're presented with a moral dilemma between 2 characters. And which decision you make infers which job or class you'll obtain. So, like, for example, if the guy holding the red mage class and the guy holding the thief class were having some sort of moral quandary, if you sided with the red mage, you'd have a battle against the thief, and you would get the thief class, but it would be a bad outcome for the thief's moral dilemma. Alright? So, cool. It would be a bad outcome. On your next go-around of the game, when you come across the second incarnation of that moral dilemma, you can either go the opposite route, side with the thief, get the red mage's bad ending and their job or class or whatever, or you can stick to your guns, pick the same choice you made before, and just get the good ending for the class you chose, for the side of the dilemma you chose. So, in one playthrough, you could miss out on half the job classes. It would ostensibly take 2 playthroughs, because of New Game Plus, to get everything. Not great. Then there was a whole thing of needing to connect the game to a Square Enix account, and I think that was just for cosmetics, but people really just, like, why would you do that? You know? So it wasn't received well. Our version of the game fixed that. If the side you chose, there would be some sort of more, not a happy ending, but a more, how do I, like, a more meeting in the middle kind of an ending, right? Where the two sides would learn to kind of compromise on the dilemma that they're having, and it'd be more of a meeting in the middle. So, kind of everybody wins situation, right? Kind of an everybody wins situation. And then on the next go around, then again, you just choose the other side, you get the class you want, and then you don't really have to worry about ruining an entire village's ecosystem, or getting a certain NPC killed off, or different things like that. Oh yeah. Sorry, the other thing about connecting your SquareEnix account, it wasn't just cosmetics. Bravely Default had a mechanic where you had to rebuild a village from the ground up. And you would normally do this by using Street Pass. So if you remember the 3DS, the Street Pass feature? Well, people you met through Street Pass would become workers or villagers and would help rebuild the town. Bravely Second had a similar thing. But in order to use it, you had to connect to a SquareEnix account just to unlock that. Not great, like, keeping that content locked behind a SquareEnix account. The Western version also fixed that and made it work just like Bravely Default's, where you would meet people through Street Pass, they would, and their Miis or character profiles or whatever would assist in that game-long side quest. So the Western version, 10 times better. However, this also caused a lot of confusion. Because when Bravely Default 2 was coming out, Bravely Second's failure in Japan is why Bravely Default now has the Final Fantasy numbering system. Where Bravely Default 2 and Bravely Second are two different games. So, when Bravely Default 2 was coming out, the producer for Bravely Default and Bravely Second apologized for Bravely Second and how it let the fans down. Over here in the West, we were like, what the fuck is he talking about? What? What do you mean? Turns out he was apologizing for the Japanese version. And then during like the Bravely Default 10th anniversary live stream that they were doing, they were talking with the chat about their memories and talking within themselves about things on the production and what went into it, and having a big old celebration of 10 years of this franchise. They showed off a big old 1080p, which is a big deal because the 3DS was like on a 480 by 640 screen or whatever, right? So they had a 1080p version of the intro theme, of the intro video to show off, and they were like, yeah, I wish we had a new game to announce, but no, we just wanted to upscale this because it would be fun. They went directly from that straight into Bravely Default 2's intro video. Despite the fact that Bravely Second has a perfectly viable intro scene, theme song, intro video, whatever you want to call it. Even worse, it's basically 240. Right, so going from 240 to 1080, a bit of a quality increase, right? I'm gonna snooze the ad break for this just until I'm done. But they didn't show off the Bravely Second intro in 1080p. They barely acknowledged its existence, except when they were showing off the characters on merchandise that they were selling for the anniversary. There's a big old poster board that they were selling as part of this like collector's edition thing. I have it downstairs on one of our shelves. It's gorgeous. That was the only time they acknowledged Magnolia, you, and the other like new characters for that game. So it feels like because it did so badly in Japan, and they've had to come out and apologize for it as well, it is still a sore spot within the company. Now, the easy thing to do would just be to remaster the Western version of the game rather than the Japanese version of it, right? That would be the easy thing to do. But it does, at the moment, at the very least, look like they're just choosing to ignore its existence altogether. I guess we'll find out when Bravely Default HD comes out in like 2.5 weeks. Because one thing you could do in the original version of the game to get this teaser trailer for Bravely Second was input the Konami code at the title screen. If you input the Konami code at the title screen, you unlocked the video teaser for Bravely Second. So if that is gone, like that'll be the first thing I check. First thing that morning when I boot up the game, or after I download it, I suppose. Because game keycard, yay. Better than nothing, but yay. If that's not there, and the video doesn't unlock after completing the main story, oh yeah, this game is just dead. They just do, like they do. But it's also funny because they literally just put Magnolia, who is ostensibly the main character for Bravely Second, into the Octopath Traveler mobile game as part of another Bravely Default crossover. They do these every so often. Some of them you can just unlock through gameplay, others are gacha, but they just put Magnolia into the Octopath mobile game at the same time that this information has come out, that they've just nixed any mention of Bravely Second within this HD remaster. So, yeah, it's a tough time to be a Bravely Second fan. Tough time.